Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday to you and yours. Woo! Awesome show for you today. We got a lot to talk about. Steve Kim's just around the corner. I'm going to lay the foundation. We'll talk about the NFL draft last night and the fall of Shedeur Sanders. We'll talk about Shannon Sharpe, the fall of Snowshay, the life and times of Snowshay today as well. I'm going to start here, though, just a little framing for the conversation. I want to start here, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to apologize for starting here, but I have to. I have to explain to you all how the events this week, the events last night, in some way relate to me in this show. And I'm sorry for personalizing. I'm sorry for showing you my narcissism. But I got to do it because I got to be authentic with you. And it will help with the framing of this show and everything we do here at Fearless if you understand it in this context. And I'm going to offer to you, if I'm wrong here, if I'm just being too narcissistic and just being greedy and I'm just doing clickbait and traction, I want you to email me. I want you to hop in the chat. I want you to put in the comments. I will deal with your pushback and feedback. Email me at fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Those of you that are watching in the chat, hop in the chat. Start killing me if I'm wrong. I'll be there during the show. I'm going to monitor what you guys say in the chat. Hop in the comments. Tell your friends, whoever, whatever. I invite your feedback and we'll deal with it. But here's the lesson for the week. And I apologize for the arrogance of it. But I've been dealing with this now for the last 10 years. Everybody judging me by the people that avoid me. Everybody judging me and taking a bold, I don't mess with Whitlock. And people said, yeah, these people and that people, they don't mess with Whitlock. And you know, we don't share his content. We don't tweet about him. I don't mess with Whitlock. I avoid him because being associated with Whitlock is a bad look for me. It defines me as evil and wicked. I'm like, oh, really? Maybe the more telling and damning thing, and the lesson that should be learned this week, maybe it's the people that I avoid that tells the real story. Maybe, let's take Shannon Sharpe. I don't mess with Whitlock. And all the groupies, yeah, I don't mess with Whitlock either. That says something terrible about me if I mess with Whitlock. I want to translate that for you. Whitlock is on that biblical Christianity mess, and I don't mess with that. I'm secular. I'm perverted. I'm committed to a culture that victimizes and makes kids vulnerable. I like my sin. And that's why I don't mess with Whitlock, because he sits on that show and he questions himself first and foremost about his sin nature. And then he points out that, hey, man, I'm telling y'all, y'all don't know Shannon Sharpe. I do. Keep your distance from Shannon. So maybe what's more telling is who I don't mess with. It applies to Deion Sanders. And I know many of y'all are Deion groupies. He's the greatest father. He's this, he's that. And you're just jealous of Deion. That's why you criticizing. No, because of my commitment to a biblical worldview, I can smell the fraudulence of Deion everywhere. And do I wish that Deion and Shannon Sharpe would choose a less fraudulent persona and public persona? Yes. I've been phony and fraudulent. I ran around calling myself big sexy, phony and fraudulent, gluttonous and sexually promiscuous, making a fool of myself. Talk about it. Expose it. And I'm trying to tell you, hey man, these people y'all running up behind, and y'all sat and listened to me tell you about Shannon Sharpe and his HR files and his problem with women, and that everybody knows it. And now everybody wants to act all shocked that he had to step aside, step down at ESPN because his chickens have come home to roost. You didn't have to run around and be a groupie for Shannon Sharpe. You didn't have to run around and cape up and attach any of your credibility to Shannon Sharpe. His fraudulence was so obvious to anybody that paid any attention. And then I was trying to tell you, and I'm sorry, and I know this hurts a lot of y'all's feelings. Deion Sanders, fraudulent. And his son's slide down the NFL draft board out of the first round last night, it's connected to Deion's fraudulence. Son sitting around there, draft night, done built a draft room with a 50-pound diamond chained around his neck, looking like a clown. My father would have slapped me into the middle of next week if I showed up with a $500,000 diamond chain around my neck on TV on draft night with this arrogance and built a draft room. And again, I never had that kind of talent. But that kind of narcissism, materialism, and again, that's always been a part of Deion, and now he's latched it onto his son. Not elevating his son, weighing his son down with his own radical materialism built from insecurity. That's the framework for today's show. We're going to start talking about Shedeur Sanders' slide. I'll do that with Steve Kim, and then we'll transition into me walking you through the significance of Shannon Sharpe's fall and walking you through, hey, why did Shannon Sharpe step aside? People don't get that. I'm going to explain it to you. But your takeaway as it relates to me in this show, and this isn't me. This isn't me saying, look, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. But the people that I avoid, Stephen A. Smith, fraud. And I'm telling you all, fraud. I've proven to you all, fraud. Be careful of. And it's not because I'm some great guy. It's just because I'm choosing to look at the world through a biblical lens. And when I see this kind of fraudulence, I'm like, those people are dangerous, and that's who you should avoid. You think Stephen A. Smith avoids Whitlock. I've covered myself in kryptonite for these frauds because I wear my Christian worldview on my sleeve. It's not me. I'm nothing special. But because I've chosen this path, the frauds can't stand me. They hate me. They hate the truth. Sorry for starting there, but I got to put it out there. And so if you want, hey, this is an I Told You So show and Whitlock's on here gloating. No, I'm trying to educate you. You can tap into biblical discernment. It's open and available to all of us. You don't have to run around after every fraud and run around and be a groupie for every fraudulent person on the planet. You can be wise because, as I've told you constantly on this show, I'm not smart. I've just surrendered. I've just given up idolatry. Many of you haven't and never will because you think these worldly icons are important and there's some important symbol and I must protect them. There's only one person, one God, one Lord and Savior that we need to protect at all costs. His name ain't Shannon Sharpe. It ain't Deion Sanders. It ain't Stephen A. Smith. It ain't Donald Trump. It's Jesus. But let me walk you through the sports stuff and what happened in the draft last night, and we'll lighten up the conversation, talk some draft stuff. Then we'll get to Shannon Sharpe in the back half of the show. And then when I'm done here, we'll go over to the Harmony channel, and I'm going to unpack a bit more about Deion Sanders and his relationship as a father with his son, Shedeur and Shiloh. We're going to do a lot today. It's going to be great. I'm glad you're here with me. I want to thank Relief Factor for making this possible. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally, developed by doctors. Relief Factor doesn't just mask pain temporarily, it helps reduce or eliminate pain. In fact, the longer you take it, the more effective it is. Relief Factor's 3-week quick start, it's just $19.95, $20. You got a shot at relieving yourself from pain and inflammation. Go to relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800-4-RELIEF. Thank you, Relief Factor. And just so me and Steve, we got a clear runway and we get into this conversation and we don't have to stop. We don't have to pause. I do want to, everybody's trying to hop on board and I don't blame them. And I'm going so deep down this rabbit hole of good health, of correcting my gluttony and making sure that I'm a good soldier and that I'm a good representation. I just keep going further and further and further down these rabbit holes. And one of the things that I've discovered is that there's this thing called C15. It's this good fat that everybody needs for health. And there's this, let me make sure I get this name right, Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson. She's working for the U.S. Navy. She discovered the benefits of C15. And if you have low C15, it can cause cellular fragility syndrome, which affects 1 in 3 people. Fatty 15, this new partner of ours, this new thing that I discovered, repairs cells, boosts longevity, and supports sleep, mood, and repair systems. In 16 weeks, 72% of users report benefits like better heart, liver, and joint health, deeper sleep, and healthier hair, skin, and nails. This vegan pure C15 supplement has three times more cellular benefits than omega-3, is clinically proven to improve cholesterol, liver, and gut health in 3 weeks, and comes in a gorgeous glass and bamboo jar. I'm down this rabbit hole. I want you to come down this rabbit hole with me. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help you live healthier longer. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/fearless and using the promo code fearless at checkout. Fatty 15, come down this rabbit hole with me. Let's take this journey together. I'm going down it. I'm bringing other people down with it. I'm letting you guys know transparently. Here's what I'm discovering. Here's what I'm using to help myself. Take this journey with me. Let's do it together. Let's become better, fearless soldiers. Woo! Let's start and bring Steve Kim up, but let's start by playing Mel Kiper, who took on the cheerleader pom-poms for Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders. I don't know what the Sanders family paid Mel Kiper, but man, Mel Kiper was on his job last night promoting Shedeur Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, Shedeur Sanders. And no one in the NFL was hopping on that bandwagon. The Pittsburgh Steelers kind of shocked everyone by taking a defensive tackle at number 21. But let's start by playing Mel Kiper, who was just shocked, I say, that Shedeur Sanders was still on the board. Let's give you a taste of ESPN's coverage. Shot number 5.
Those are on the clock at number 20, and right now it's time for a look at Mel's best available, brought to you by Courtyard by Marriott.
They got some good ones. Shedeur, I'm amazed right now that he's still on the board, as I was with Aaron Rodgers. New Orleans, hey, I'm going to wait and see who makes a move to get Shedeur Sanders before I start talking about those organizations that will haunt them.
Let me play Shedeur Sanders after the draft. He built this room. He had hats up for all these teams. He was all prepared to go in the first round, but he did stand like a man. This is the room he had built. He's got literally who does this? He's got hats of a bunch of teams that he thought he might get drafted by. This is at his home, I guess, in Texas, this whole legendary deal. But let's play the clip of Shedeur after not getting drafted in the first round. He stood there like a man and owned up to, they kind of miscalculated, wasn't expecting this. Let's play SOT number 3.
Thank everybody for being here. We all didn't expect this, of course, but I feel like with God, anything possible, everything possible. I don't feel like this happened, for no reason. All this is of course, fuel to the fire. And under no circumstance, we all know this shouldn't have happened. But we understand we're on the bigger and better things. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to be happy regardless. Legendary.
Ooh. Probably should have ended that with delusional. Steve Kim, how should we feel about Shedeur Sanders not going in the first round last night? I know people right now are upset with me. Why are you celebrating this? Because I'm being authentic. Steve, your thoughts?
What comes to mind? 3 letters. DMX, because he's slipping. He's slipping and he's falling and he can't get up and he's in the second round. Jason, we talked about this yesterday. If New Orleans at 9 did not take a quarterback, which they didn't, and I was stunned that certain people had mocked Jackson Dart in the top 10. I'm still not a believer in him. I'm really not, based on that system that he played in. So everyone pointed to 21. So, Jason, I have to admit, this was great television. I was thoroughly entertained. I was in suspense. And as 19 and 20 were picked, then I'm like, okay, here we go. This is it. And when the selection came in, I said it happened. And, I don't really feel either way for the Sanders family. They'll be okay. No need to send them any money. They don't need any PayPal. But Jason, I'm really concerned about Ryan Clark and Mel Kiper. How are they doing today? That's who we really should be concerned about. And Jason, you actually played the wrong Kiper clip. I mean, you should have played that one. But I happen to be on 2 networks, NFL and ESPN. I switch over. That's what I do every year. This year, I happen to be on ESPN for whatever reason, and they begin the draft at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Now, I'm thinking, okay, number 1, can we not celebrate the number 1 pick in the draft? Cam Ward from the U. Great job of development, Mario Cristobal, my head football coach. A black quarterback goes number 1. But what do they start off with, Jason? They start off with a Mel Kiper rant about Shedeur Sanders. Now, Jason, at this point in time, it is clear the Titans are going in one direction. Cam. And I'm thinking, okay, let's focus in on Cam, the number 1 pick. We have plenty of time. We have another 3.5 hours to talk about every other player. But they set the stage right from the beginning, and they told you this is what our coverage is going to be about. And when he's talking about Cam throughout the night, and he's getting angrier and angrier, I had one thing in mind, Jason. Bill Tobin had a point. It's time to come clean. Bill Tobin had a point, Jason. That's what I was thinking.
So let me ask you this. You said off the top, hey, I have to admit, I was entertained. It was great television.
Yeah.
So maybe what Mel Kiper, what Louis Riddick, what Booger McFarland, what Michael Greenberg participated in, the entire conversation from start to finish, when that thing kicked off at 7 p.m. Central Time, the whole conversation was about Shedeur, and maybe that was a gimmick, a script maybe they weren't being honest because they were trying to do great TV, and so they built this whole thing around Shedeur. Is maybe it was a strategy, and again, I don't think there was any authenticity to it, but maybe it was an effective strategy for doing great TV.
Well, first of all of those guys you mentioned, they have secured the lifetime cookout pass. So they're on the RSVP list. So as we make that graphic, Jason, those guys need to be right at the top. But it also started before the actual draft. If you look at Dan Orlovsky, gave a real good breakdown, X's and O's, which then Deion Sanders did not like and called him a flat-out hater. And then also Swagoo. Swagoo had some really honest things to say. And as I'm watching that desk, and I'm watching the coverage throughout the night, Jason, I hate to get political, but I'm going to get political. This reminded me of watching CNN, CNBC, and MSNBC, and every other mainstream outlet on November 5th. They kept trying to tell us something was going to happen. They kept trying to tell us this is the way it should go. This is the way of righteousness for us. This has to happen. And early on, I would say that after New Orleans at number 9 passed, I would equate that to Donald Trump jumping out early and getting the first 135, 40 electoral votes. When Pittsburgh, now this is interesting because they're in Pennsylvania. Once Pittsburgh passed, that was everyone saying, God dog it, Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania. And I had visions of people leaving Howard University, just slinking out of there. And you could see the desperation and the hopelessness and the despair. And it's interesting, if you actually watch the Orlovsky and Swagoo clips on that desk, they kind of reminded me of Scott Jennings and Shermichael Singleton on Abby Phillips' show. They're the two voices of reason saying some of the most obvious things, and the looks that they are getting on that set, it is palpable, the disgust.
You're right. Pittsburgh was
Pennsylvania.
New Orleans was the first swing state to fall.
Yeah.
And then I would compare Pittsburgh to Ohio, because isn't it some deal if you win Ohio, you normally win the presidency? And so once it's like, there's no path to 270 electoral votes now that the Pittsburgh Steelers have passed on Shedeur Sanders, and it was like, that's a wrap. But then there was this glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
The Giants have traded back up into the first round. Could it be?
Yeah.
And no.
Yeah. So Jason, so when the Giants traded back down, that's when they stopped counting votes for about an hour. Remember, we got all nervous again? I was like, oh no, not this again. Not this again. We saw this in 2020. And Jason, it has to be a kick in the gut for that quarterback to then be from, of all places, Ole Miss. I mean, just think of the symbolism, right? So then, here's the other thing. So every other team from like 25 to 32 that didn't take Shedeur, and you knew they weren't because you look at the quarterback situations, Jason, that's every swing state that went to Trump in essence. But I want to point out one thing that I forgot, Jason, this whole notion that an anonymous quote from a story somehow influenced NFL teams to slide down Shedeur on their draft board. We hear all the time that the teams do not care what the media says. They don't take us seriously. They have their own boards. And sometimes teams will plant stories to get a player to fall to them. It turns out that that narrative was actually the consensus.
It certainly was. And I'm going to play some Ryan Clark, some Marcus Spears, some Dan Orlovsky, because if ESPN were really doing great television last night during the draft, now I know before the draft they had some good commentary, but actually during the draft, I couldn't believe it. It's like, no one here is going to represent the other side of this Shedeur argument. Yeah. We listened to Louis Riddick and Mel Kiper, and Booger tried to stay a tiny bit neutral, but there was nobody willing to say obvious things. Like, I'm not saying this should have been Adam Schefter's role, but Adam Schefter reported that there were a handful of teams like, hey, look, if I draft Shedeur in the first round and he doesn't perform, that perhaps they're going to say, hey, the new coach should be Deion in year 2. And like, that should have been discussed last night by somebody. Like, if you draft Shedeur high, are you putting yourself, the coach, the executive, the draft, in some sort of jeopardy that you now have to come in year 2 or 3 and let Deion fix the son? None of this was discussed. His attitude problems, his arrogance, none of this discussed.
Well,
somebody should have, it should have been, that would have been even better TV.
Jason, I'm sick of hearing Shedeur's never been in trouble. He's never broken the law. He's never been in jail. Okay, that's the old Chris Rock. I got a job. I feed my kids. I'm not a prisoner. Well, what do you want, a cookie? So that's the standard. As if there's no problems with him in the locker room. There haven't been other issues. But I wanted to ask you this, Jason, as someone who has respected and admired Louis Riddick. I think he's a meat and potatoes football guy. Someone brought this up on my timeline yesterday, and I have to admit, it got me thinking. Did that performance last night on the draft, do you think at this point NFL teams no longer take him seriously as a GM prospect?
I do think Louis Riddick demonstrated last night why he hasn't gotten a general manager's job. Because Louis Riddick, to me, on TV, comes across as a great candidate to be a general manager. And the way he presents himself, a lot of his commentary, but it takes a level of boldness and coldness to actually have that job. And you have to, like, because here's what Louis Riddick, Booger to a lesser degree, but they're friends with Deion. And in business, it's like business is never personal. And this friendship is one thing, but I got to be a cold-blooded businessman for this organization that's paying me a lot of money. And Louis Riddick just proved last night he doesn't have that kind of boldness and coldness. He's not built for that. Because you can be in support of Shedeur while acknowledging the potential problems and complications. You got one of the greatest football players of all time that's going to be second-guessing you from afar on how you handle his son at quarterback. There's no coach or general manager that wants to subject themselves to that, and that's problematic. Louis could have mentioned it. He didn't. Doesn't have big enough balls for the job that he wants.
Jason, another thing that you have to have in that position is discipline. You have got to be able to block out the noise and stick with your convictions and to tell hard truths. Bill Polian, I believe one of the great talent evaluators and team builders of all time, and built those great Super Bowl teams for the Buffalo Bills, had one of the greatest lines. He says, if you listen to the fans too much, you'll be sitting up there with them one day soon.
Steve, let me put a pin right here for a second, because I'm going to start playing these clips and we'll talk about what was said before the draft and what wasn't said during the draft. But before I do that, I want to talk to you guys about home title lock. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof that you own your house. If you're like most of us, you just haven't done it. And if you own multiple properties like some of us, I know you haven't done it. AI and the cyber world have empowered scammers, and your title is in jeopardy. The equity you have in your home is the target. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and then boom, they have your title. It's been transferred out of your name. They now can take out loans on your equity or even steal your property. You won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing right now and find out today if you're already a victim. Use the promo code FEARLESS at HomeTitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HomeTitleLock.com right now. Use the promo code FEARLESS. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code FEARLESS. Steve, here's Dan Orlovsky before the draft saying something interesting and honest about Shedeur Sanders, and I just am baffled why Orlovsky or someone like him couldn't have been a part of the draft, the actual draft coverage. Not everyone has the time to watch the pre-draft coverage and the draft coverage. Here's Dan Orlovsky talking, SOT number one, Dan Orlovsky talking about Shedeur Sanders.
If I were teams that entertaining drafting Shedeur, I would want to sit down and watch a lot of the plays that led to the sacks and just have conversations around them. Why? Why did they happen? Because for me, one of the big takeaways is there's too many like situational, selfish sacks where they're unnecessary at times when you got points potentially on the board. This is 3rd and 3 from the 7-yard line. One, this ball should be thrown to the back part of the end zone once you see the safety drive. But that doesn't happen. It's 3rd and 3 from the 7, okay? And now all of a sudden it becomes 4th and goal from the 32. Again, this is 3rd down from the 28. Just throw this ball away. You lose the rep. The defense has won the rep. Throw it away. We've got a field goal shot from the 28, but instead it's a 10-yard sack. That happens too often. Then the non-dynamic athleticism. This is cover 2 man. Everybody man underneath, and we're just rushing the quarterback. I promise you, teams do this. I have heard coaches say, when we as a defense are playing quarterbacks that do not make us fear running, we're going to play 2-man in passing situations because our pass rush will handle it. And so they don't do that to Josh. They don't do that to Patrick. They don't do it really to Joe, Lamar. So that's the kind of the traits that you're talking about. So, again, that's the flaws that you're going to have to figure out when you eventually draft Shedeur.
Look, why is Dan Orlovsky talking about this before the draft and then during 4 hours of draft coverage, none of this is brought up? It blows my mind.
Yeah, and the thing about Scott Jennings, Orlovsky, is that he played football. Say what you want. I get it. He ran out of the end zone, but he was still one of those 1%ers, as Coach JB says. He knows a lot about that position. Jason, after the draft, I wanted to do my own research. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm an observer. I went to YouTube, and there's a 15-minute video of every sack that Shedeur Sanders took last year. It was 15 minutes long. That's a long video. Now, they didn't exactly have Andre Garrard or Nate Solder in front of them. But, Jason, in my estimation, based on what I know about football, I would say that at least a third of those sacks that he took were a result of him holding the ball too long or a combination of it being a coverage sack where he did not want to get rid of the ball and just start over. That is a real problem. And by the way, Jason, Orlovsky made an interesting point. I don't know if you watched that whole game. That first sack that he took against BYU, that's from the bowl game where they got blown out. Did you know after that sack, which was from inside the 20, then to outside the 30, they ended up missing that field goal? It's a valid point. You have to be able to be, it's not just about the sacks. In an age of the bubble screen, the quick game, and the RPO, it's no longer unusual. In fact, it is average if you are throwing at about a 65% clip. So when people recite the stats, you have to be able to find some context within those numbers.
Steve, I made this analogy last night in my head because everyone's talking, look at his numbers and, he did this or that. And everyone's acting like this is unprecedented. Well, and Steve, you can help me out. My memory's not as good as yours as it relates to this, but Andre Ware won the Heisman Trophy, I believe, at the University of Houston. Didn't he go number 1 in the draft, I believe?
He was
pretty
among
high
the top
up.
Top five, and won the Heisman in '89. Yes.
A bust. David Klingler, I believe, followed in after Andre Ware.
Yes.
Yeah, a bust. And it's a system that Houston was playing. They were playing a little bit of the run and shoot. They were putting up big numbers. And no one wants to talk about the system that Colorado ran. Everybody wants to talk about he had no help. His offensive line stunk. He had no running game. They weren't interested in running the ball. He put his offensive line in bad position. And everything was about Shedeur's stats. We've seen stat guys, Klingler, Andre Ware, others, go high in the draft and not pan out in the NFL. There's nothing unique about what's happened here to Shedeur Sanders. And this isn't me saying he's going to be a bust in the NFL. It's just saying, like, hey, I get why these teams are skeptical. They're not just looking at numbers, they're looking at the details that Dan Orlovsky's pointing to. They've been at this a long time. They actually know the history of the NFL and what other quarterbacks have done. I've always said, I think Shedeur Sanders' ceiling is Dak Prescott. That's a hell of a ceiling. Dak Prescott's going to make $300, $500, $600 million in the NFL. He was a third, fourth round pick. That's, I think, what Shedeur is. He's got to prove himself.
Yeah.
But Marcus Spears. Oh, go ahead, Steve. You got a comment on
Jason,
that. Go
when
ahead.
you take a look at Andre Ware and David Klingler, they played in a pure run and shoot under the guidance of John Jenkins, okay? But take a look at Texas Tech with Mike Leach. For about 12 to 15 years, every one of his quarterbacks was the NCAA passing leader, right? And they had guys like Cliff Kingsbury, B.J. Simons. But back then, nobody was really running that version of the spread, so they did not translate to the National Football League. But how many of those great Texas Tech quarterbacks, until Patrick Mahomes, really had any type of NFL careers? As Ben Franklin once said, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there are statistics.
Let's go to Marcus Spears, who showed some real courage here, distinguished himself as a broadcaster before the draft, and just keep it. Orlovsky got attacked by Deion for his comments. You know, some called him a hater and blah, blah, blah. And Deion just doesn't, he's oblivious to the impact he has on his son and why teams fear. But here's Marcus Spears, SOT number 2, being honest about Shedeur Sanders.
Look, y'all, first of all, we all sit up here and we have an affinity for these guys, and we don't want to shed a bad light on them. We react to what we see.
But it's our job. It's our job.
What I'm about to say, Dan, nothing about Shedeur pops off the tape.
Right.
And when we start talking about quarterbacks where you taking them to be franchise changers and you think that they can be guys to take you into the next 10, 15 years, he hasn't proven that he can be that guy yet. Now, then it becomes, all right, our conversation shifts to development, because we've all had that conversation. Where do you think this dude's ceiling is if he's not there right now? Since he's not giving us anything to say, okay, this trait or this characteristic takes him above what we see him lacking. That's the issue with Shedeur.
Can he become Geno Smith?
Exactly. And when you ask your question, when you ask as an organization that question, does Geno Smith really get you excited? No, it doesn't. I think it's a good starter, but it's not a guy that you think is going to put you in competition to win big games.
Geno Smith is a great analogy. There were questions about Geno Smith's character and leadership early in his NFL career. Geno Smith had a hell of a run, I believe, at West Virginia. It's a great, fair analogy. Hats off to Marcus Spears for having the integrity and the guts to say it, knowing that Deion Sanders and the Sanders family and all the other Deion groupies are probably going to hop in his mentions and go after him. But anyway, I like the Geno Smith comparison.
Yeah, and for some reason, Deion didn't get on Swagoo. Wonder why that is. And by the way, Jason, it was hard not to notice the looks on the faces of old Ryan Clark and Mina Kimes. I mean, it's almost like, are we allowed to say this? Are you sure that is not problematic, what you are saying there? But this is the other thing that I noticed, Jason, to expound upon what Marcus Spears said. In a lot of those facts that I watched last night on that YouTube video, Sanders is not that athletic. I know there's this stereotype that every black quarterback is Michael Vick or Randall Cunningham. That's simply not the truth. I would say that Shedeur and even Cam Ward, they're not what I would call scramblers. They're not great runners. They have some craft within the pocket. And specifically with Shedeur, when he has a bad habit, Jason, of drifting back. He does not climb the pocket. He does not step up. He seems to really drift back. And then when he has to escape, he gets chased down by a lot of linebackers, not even defensive backs, linebackers, second-level defenders really swamp and swarm him. So he's going to have a really good internal clock and understand at this level of football, for the most part, you have to be able to get that ball off consistently within 2.25 to 2.75 seconds, or you're going to get beat up like a piñata in East LA.
Geno Smith, by the way, the 39th pick in the draft when he came out, I believe, in 2013, early second round. Cleveland Browns had the first pick of the second round, and I think 3-4 picks later, they have another second round pick. Deshaun Watson's still their quarterback. Who did they sign someone? They don't know. Mason Rudolph's with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Is it Joe
Do
Flacco?
you think the
Flacco's
Cleveland
on the Browns, isn't he? Flacco's back in Cleveland.
They didn't re-sign. I don't know if that's true, Steve.
Yes, I think
Are you
Flacco's
sure?
back in Cleveland.
I
Poor
don't know
guy.
if that's true. I thought he was there, and then they let him go. I thought Flacco played in Indianapolis last year.
He did.
He played in Indianapolis last year. And you think he circled back to Cleveland again?
A man is only as good as his options. I think he's back.
All right, I'm going to look that up. But anyway, do you think Cleveland takes, Steve is right, do you think Cleveland takes Shedeur with one of its two picks today?
I do. I tweeted that last night. But, Jason, here's the doomsday scenario that I'm going to love, because it would boggle the mind and be a lot of confused outrage. What if Cleveland does go for a quarterback? What if it is a young brother by the name of Jalen Milroe? How would they react then? and you look at Jalen Milroe, an incredible athlete, Jason. I actually believe that he should be Cordell/Stewart in 1995, or a new version of Taysom Hill. I would say to Jalen, work your way and let's see if you can be a full-time quarterback. But year one, we want to use you as a Swiss Army knife. Wildcat packages, get you the ball open space. We want to design you some running plays, get you the ball, reverse passes like Antoine Randall L. He's an incredible athlete, but he needs development. If Cleveland took him, or if he went before Shedeur Sanders, Jason, it's going to be a fun night. It's going to be a fun night on night 2 of the draft.
You make an interesting point that I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to discuss this. Jackson Dart right now, through no fault of his own, he's in the crosshairs. He's in the crosshairs because the Giants traded back up into the bottom of the first round of the draft to get Jackson Dart. And so now, no different than, remember when Josh Allen went high in the draft and everybody was Bomani Jones and everybody, it's just because he's white and look at his accuracy at Wyoming and blah, blah. He was in the crosshairs and had to prove himself and got beat up because there was some black quarterback. Was Josh Allen in the same draft as Lamar Jackson?
It was Lamar Jackson, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so Jackson Dart is about to get a lot of scrutiny and criticism through no fault of his own, just because they didn't go get Shedeur Sanders. I have some sympathy for Jackson Dart, and you're right. I would love, I don't know, if someone went up and got Jalen Milroe, then people may have to deal with the fact that, like, hey, man, Deion, and this, I'm going to talk about this separately on the Harmony channel live after today's show, but Deion did not put his boy out of the cocoon like he should have. He's kept him in a cocoon and has personally developed and coached him all the way through college. And people are afraid of that. Like, he's only been coached by his dad. He's always had the ultimate authority that he could go to if anything went wrong. And I'm telling you, there's coaches, they're scared to death of it. Take the guy that's now the head coach at San Diego State that was their offensive coordinator, the Kent State coach, now San Diego State coach.
Sean Lewis.
Like when Sean Lewis, when Shedeur got frustrated with him, he could always go to daddy. he's always been able to turn to daddy. He hasn't been pushed out of the cocoon at 18 years old and learned to fly on his own, and people are concerned. Can he fly on his own? Steve, let's get to the money part of this so we can kind of put a bow on the Shedeur conversation. We've saved the best for last, and that's Ryan Clark. Ryan, Louis Farrakhan, Malcolm X Clark, and his take, and I think this was this was on the pivot before the draft. He's clearly racializing this whole thing. I think much of what Ryan Clark said here is stupid and silly, but we're going to be treated to this type of conversation over the next 6, 7, 8 months, all throughout next season, and certainly today, depending on where Shedeur gets drafted. Here's Ryan Clark summarizing and talking about the Shedeur situation and pointing a finger at the white man very subtly, but let's play the clip.
My biggest problem with it is obviously the anonymity of all of the comments and all of the quotes and all of the things that we have had reported, whether it was Josina Anderson around the combine, recently with this quote from an offensive coach who says he's entitled, or who says he puts the blame. I watched Shedeur Sanders get damn near killed for 2 years at Colorado. And I never saw him berate a lineman on the sideline. I never saw him cuss or scream at a coach. And you're hearing these things like entitled and these little pieces of the characteristics of his personality when we had a #1 overall draft pick get arrested for being orderly and drunk. And we had more people coming out and saying, okay, here is who the real Baker Mayfield is. We had more anonymous people saying those things. Shedeur Sanders never been arrested. Shedeur Sanders has never been in trouble. Shedeur Sanders has never misused his names to the point of taking advantage of people. You have Johnny Manziel, who missed the first game of his last year against Rice for Texas A&M because he was suspended. You have Johnny Manziel, who ended up getting a whole documentary about how effed up he was away from the field, but there was no anonymous talk about him. There was no one coming out and saying Johnny Manziel isn't a good person. Johnny Manziel is entitled. Johnny Manziel has an alcohol issue. And so to me, the way that Shedeur Sanders has been covered seems purposeful. It seems that there is some sort of intent to slander or defame. All of these conversations could be taking place behind closed doors, as they do for so many of these people, and kept there. But why him?
Wait a minute.
Ryan Clark is brain dead and a liar. And this is the problem when you do sports talk or any type of discussion without any resistance. When you play a 3-man weave, when you play 7-on-7 football, it's not real football. Someone needed to say, and Fred Taylor and Channing Crowder, they're not going to say this to Ryan. You know why there were no anonymous comments about Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield for the most part? Because they're white and you didn't need anonymity. You can say whatever you want about them, and people did. Colin Cowherd built a brand, or enhanced his brand, not built, he had a brand. Enhanced his brand, attacking Baker Mayfield relentlessly. Everybody's free to talk about Baker's cockiness, attitude problems. There was no need for anonymity. Johnny Manziel, everybody talked about it on the record. He's white. You can say anything about a white guy. You can get on TV. White people, they're the racist devils. They destroyed America. You can say anything. So there's no need for anonymity. There's no resistance. There's no pushback to the out-and-out lies that Ryan Clark, or just the lack of knowledge that Ryan Clark speaks with. It's unbelievable that this guy can come out here and just lie on people and say, and just promote this kind of racial division when anybody with a brain could push back against, like, what are you talking about? You don't need anonymity. It's like, Steve doesn't need to anonymously say, hey, Jason Whitlock's overweight. You can say that. You can say whatever you want about Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield. There's real risk to telling the truth about Shedeur Sanders. Your thoughts?
All right, well, thanks for letting me know. I could just go on the record with that. But Jason, first of all, When it came to Baker Mayfield, his attitude and his petulance was a big storyline. And you mentioned Cowherd. I remember he actually had Baker Mayfield in studio at Fox, and it was a tense 45 minutes. It was great television. And I remember when he grabbed his crotch before playing Kansas, wouldn't shake his hands. That was a big story. But Baker Mayfield, I think, was a 3-time Heisman Trophy finalist, won it 1 year, led a team to the playoffs. He was a better player. Now, he had some physical, I would say, limitations, but he's turned out to be, I would say, a frontline National Football League quarterback. Okay? Now, as it relates to Johnny Manziel, sometimes it's lying by omission. Yes, he was suspended for the opening game after the Heisman Trophy season. Jason, remember what that was for? It was not for armed robbery. It was not for sexual assault. Johnny Manziel did this dirty thing. He accepted money to sign autographs. I mean, shit. He did NIL before NIL. That's why he was suspended. And by the way, there were people that went on the record and said Johnny Manziel is not a first rounder. In fact, certain people said he's unplayable.
Merrill Hodge.
Merrill Hodge. I want to bring up Haji. Merrill, wherever you are, a lonely draft nation looks upon you. We miss him. And by the way, I think part of the reason why Merrill is no longer doing some of this, along with his health, and I hope he's okay, I think he was too damn honest. And Merrill Hodge flat out called it the way it was with him.
He certainly was too honest, and ESPN doesn't allow. But I'm going to circle back. All this conversation we just had, let's not underestimate. Maybe this was a strategy for great television. Maybe if they had been more honest, it's not great television, because everybody would have been, if we were honest, what Pittsburgh did is not that surprising. They needed a defensive tackle. They said that beforehand, and most people thought that maybe Pittsburgh would take a flyer, but Pittsburgh is still thinking maybe they'll get Aaron Rodgers. There were people that were saying, like, hey, man, none of these quarterbacks really have a first-round grade on them. You and I talked about that yesterday, and there have certainly been people that have said Shedeur Sanders in any real draft is a third or fourth round draft pick. I'm telling you, he's Dak Prescott. That's not a rip. That's just an acknowledgement. Last thing. Hadley provided some stat this morning that maybe 80% of the first round draft picks last night were from the Big Ten or the SEC. And this has been a part of the other dishonest conversation about Shedeur. The Big 12 is really the Mountain West, and he wasn't playing against the best competition. And the scouts that are evaluating, because I'm telling you, Shedeur does some nice touch passes downfield, but just in terms of throwing into tight coverage windows as guys come across the, there's not a lot of film of him doing that. And so he didn't play in the SEC or the Big Ten against the best of the best. And that's hurting him a little bit. If he put up those numbers in the SEC or the Big Ten, maybe he does go in the first round. But we've never had an honest conversation about what Shedeur actually really did. 13-12, 1-8 versus top 25 teams, blown out in the only bowl game he played. That's Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, and Jason, a couple things here. And having Travis Hunter playing against those Big 12 secondaries, that helps. A couple of other receivers will be drafted. Couple things, and I sent this to Hadley. There's a scene of Ryan Clark clasping arms with his two partners as Pittsburgh drafts. I'm thinking, and then he reacts kind of emotionally as they didn't take Shedeur. I'm thinking, man, Ryan Clark was really into this. He was really, really into this. The other thing that I found interesting, look, everyone's mock drafts are going to have a lot of errors, especially if a team trades, because that jumbles everything up. But going back to Mel Kiper, I believe he thought he should have been the number 1 pick, and he had him number 5 overall. That's his opinion. I still respect Mel for the most part. But I've never seen a player that you thought should be either number 1 or a top 5 pick drop completely out of the first round. Think about it. it's one thing to have Warren Sapp drop to number 12 because of some bad test. He still was in the top half of the first round. The other thing that I find interesting is that if he gets drafted in the top 50, that's still very high. And people will tell you being a second-round draft choice brings about advantages in terms of the collective bargaining. You only get a 4-year contract, and if you're really good, that's an advantage. You hit free agency earlier. You do not have that 5th-year option. Now, to wrap it up, Jason, I don't want to add to your narcissism. It's been over the top. But Whitlock, I have got to give you credit. This week, you have been 1988 Michael Jordan. Remember Jordan when he won Defensive Player of the Year, Slam Dunk, MVP? He won everything except the championship. I mean, he won every single honor, right? And I've even seen YouTube channels that hate you. They are just begrudgingly giving you their flowers. They're like, God, dog it. All right, Whitlock, you have a point. So you've had a good week. It's been good for you.
That's a good segue to transition into the second half of the show, because I'm going to talk about Shannon Sharpe stepping aside and stepping down. Last thing, Steve, I want to read you Deion's tweet from May of 2024. Someone said something to him about his son, and Deion's reply was, hold on. Go back. I want to read the first. Yeah, some random guy. Tell your son to act like he's the coldest out here, then put up a 4-8 season. Deion in May of 24, he will be a top 5 pick. Where your son going? Laugh out loud. I got time today. Laugh out loud. Then they added a community note last night. Shedeur Sanders was not a top 5 draft pick. Do you think Deion regrets that tweet?
Well, first of all, Jason, he never specified which round. So technically he's not incorrect. But right there, Jason, that's the lack of self-awareness. Right there is one of those things that teams, look, it doesn't get you off the draft board, but it's just one of those things that you say, is all of that worth having him in our building? It does matter, Jason.
It certainly does. Steve, thank you. Have a great weekend. Great job as always. Don't you all, you know what? Not only am I going to tell you not to go anywhere, what you need to do is hit subscribe, you need to hit likes, and then you need to start calling your friends, because the show's about to get even better. I got so much more I need to say about Shannon Sharpe stepping aside, breaking that down for you. I'm going to explain to you exactly why he put out the comment or put out the statement that he's stepping aside. People don't understand what's really going on behind the scenes. This is a negotiation, a negotiated exit. I'm going to explain it to you on the other side of this. Before I do that, I want to remind you all, you're looking at me right now and you're saying, hey, man, Whitlock, man, he's looking better. He's losing weight clearly. It's all a part of this rabbit hole that I've gone down, and all a part of me being able to exercise and move around more, better, and more aggressively and more hard, just more difficult. And part of that has been incorporating Relief Factor into my daily routine. You guys have heard me talk about this virtually every day on the show. My buddy Jeffrey Steele, country music star, legendary Hall of Fame country music writer. He's 63, bikes every day, 30 miles every morning. He uses Relief Factor. We started sharing our Relief Factor stories. Jeffrey tells me about his buddy that had knee surgery, and the only thing that relieved the pain was Relief Factor. You guys can experience the pain relief, the inflammation relief that I'm experiencing, that Jeffrey's experiencing, just $20. You can get Relief Factor's 3-week quick start for just $19.95. $20, you have a chance at reducing your pain and suffering. This is a 100% drug-free supplement. It's a daily supplement. 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's the number, 1-800-4-RELIEF, or visit relieffactor.com. Don't you go anywhere. We're going to take a small break. We're going to tell you about roll call and why you need to be here in Nashville. And then I'm going to connect these dots as it relates to Shannon Sharpe, and that'll be a part of the roll call discussion as well. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to explain the Shannon Sharpe situation in details and at levels No one else will. Next.
Being a man is not about how much power you have over others. Being a man is about how much power you have over yourself.
If you are looking for men that want to make a difference in our nation, in our country, this is the place to go.
Every time you see a hero, you'll see a monument or a statue, and they're always bigger than life. They're not. They were afraid. They were unsure. They just were doing what they thought was right. That's you.
The fears of not knowing anybody went away real quick.
Everywhere I went, I was always able to meet the person sitting next to me.
We have to be physically prepared for the fight that we're in.
I'm joining him on Friday, May 2nd in Nashville for the Roll Call 3.0 conference.
Get tickets now for Roll Call 3.0.
Proverbs 17:17 says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. That's fearless. That's roll call.
Roll Call 3.0.
All right, welcome back. Let me circle back to where I began this show, just for a little and hopefully I'm going to do this in 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but I got to do it because people are confused about what's going on with Shannon Sharpe, what to read into it, the significance of it. I've been on it all week and explaining to you all, but I'm just going to circle back to what I told you at the beginning of the show, and I'm sorry for the narcissism. Sorry, but I just got to keep it real. The story of Snowshay, I'm writing myself into the script a bit. Everybody loves to focus on, I don't mess with Whitlock, I avoid Whitlock, Whitlock's the bad guy. There go the bad guy, Jason Whitlock. Oh, he's terrible. He believes in the patriarchy. He believes in the Bible. He believes in male leadership. He tries to avoid and avoid sin, confess his sins. He calls out the alphabet mafia, that army. And oh, he's the bad guy, and we got to stay away from him. And oh, he had E. Michael Jones on his show. He's anti-Semitic. The people avoiding me, they're not avoiding me. They're avoiding my biblical worldview. And that's not me. I'm a degenerate, not on Shannon Sharpe's level, but, I'm a degenerate, all right? But I've submitted, and I'm serving, and I've been made anew. And so those things are in my past, and so I'm trying to lead you all down this path a better way. And so, yes, people are going to avoid me because I wear my belief in Christ on my sleeve. And I'm telling you all, you need to be leery of the people that avoid me because they're telling on themselves. I'm not saying everybody's got to like me, but when you actively are like, I hate Whitlock and I can't be associated with, I can't be pictured, I can't retweet, I can't do this, I can't do that, you're actually telling on yourself. And no one has been told on themselves better than Shannon Sharpe. And he's been doing it for years in plain sight. Your idolatry, your racial idolatry, your just idolatry of just idols and icons, and your idolatry of money. Oh, Shannon Sharpe's rich, and he's making all this money on YouTube. I must follow him, and I must defend him because he's important to the culture. Dude's a fraud. And it's now being exposed. And those of you that have run up behind him and defended him at every turn, you look foolish. The story of Snowshay, the new O.J. Simpson, this all could have been avoided. Shannon Sharpe yesterday cut and pasted a statement that someone wrote for him explaining why he's walking away from or stepping away from ESPN. And people, he's stepping away before they fire him, or he said this is a smart move. Let me read the statement that he cut and pasted. Someone texted it to him, one of it, and he rushed to Twitter to put it out. My statement is found here. That's unbelievable. My statement, and this is the truth. The relationship in question was 100% consensual. He's talking about the young girl, Gabby, or Carly, I think, on OnlyFans, that has accused him of sexual assault, accused him of choking her. At this juncture, I'm electing to step aside temporarily from my ESPN duties. I will be devoting this time to my family and responding and dealing with these false and disruptive allegations set against me. I plan to return to ESPN at the start of the NFL preseason. I sincerely appreciate the overwhelming and ongoing support I have received from my family, fans, friends, and colleagues. Shannon Sharpe. That's the statement. Here's my read on the statement. And I could be wrong, but I tend to think I'm right here. Shannon Sharpe and ESPN are in a negotiation about his exit. And this is how these things play out. If Shannon Sharpe quits, whatever that contract he signed with ESPN in the past 6 months to a year, if he quits, he surrenders all that money. If ESPN can fire him for cause, he surrenders all that money that's on paper from ESPN. And so Shannon Sharpe, trust me, the New York Post published a story today about this Michelle Bundy, one of Shannon Sharpe's ex-girlfriends, who has been saying for years that he attacked her, strangled her, threatened her, the horrifying, all this other stuff. Story about her. Front Office Sports yesterday reported the story that I have been telling you about, that when Shannon Sharpe was at FS1, Freak Sports 1, and during the time that I was there, Front Office Sports has reported the story about the young, I believe the woman was 24, 25-ish, white girl, that my understanding, she was involved in a consensual relationship with Shannon Sharpe. This is my understanding. I was there at the time, heard this story in real time. It was the talk all throughout FS1. Shannon Sharpe and the production assistant that claimed Shannon Sharpe strangled her inside the Fox Sports studios. Not the actual show studios, but in the building, the work area. And eventually, I think they moved this woman away from that show and it gave her a different job. But everybody at FS1 knew this story. Front Office Sports, and so this had to be 2018, 2019. Everybody talking about this story. Front Office Sports is reporting that Fox Sports and Shannon Sharpe reached a financial settlement with this young woman. Similar claims as the current woman. There's a pattern here. And so when you're looking at Shannon Sharpe and what's going on with he and ESPN and why he's trying to negotiate his way out, he doesn't want to quit. He wants ESPN to have to fire him without cause so that he can get some of that money that ESPN owes him. I imagine they probably signed him to a pretty substantial contract, maybe in the $4 or $5 million range. Who knows? I don't know, per year. And who knows? Maybe it's more than that, because he had great impact on First Take's television ratings, but he was only on there like twice a week. But regardless, Shannon Sharpe wants that money, because if he's going to survive, even in the podcast space, he's going to have to reach a bunch more settlements with potential accusers. What is Tony Busby, the lawyer that represents the woman with the $50 million lawsuit? What's his pattern as it relates to Deshaun Watson, Diddy? He kicks up enough dust and enough controversy that other accusers come out of the woodwork and they all want settlements. They all want to join the lawsuit. And so Shannon Sharpe needs as much money, cash, as he can get, because he's got some settlements that he needs to put in place so that he can eventually quiet down all the conversation about him and make sure all of his accusers are financially satisfied so he can then go back to pretending like, oh, it's all a lie and rumor. I'm being extorted here. I did nothing wrong. He and ESPN are trying to negotiate their way out. ESPN likely wants to fire him with cause and say, we don't owe you an additional dime. Shannon Sharpe wants them to fire him without cause so he can get, let's say they're on the hook, they got a 4-year contract, $20 million, that he can get 10, 12 million of that money in a settlement. And then he can take that money and dole it out to his accusers, quiet everything down, so that he can then club Shay Shay and the corporations and advertisers that support Club Shay Shay can all put the blinders back on and say, all these accusations about Shannon, he just had a run of bad luck. These are just women out to exploit Shannon Sharpe. He's done nothing. Shannon Sharpe is an angel. Everybody can put their blinders back on and they can get back to business as usual. In my view, this is a negotiated exit. This is a tactic by Shannon Sharpe's handlers to delay and to put ESPN, hey, don't fire him, don't fire him, don't fire him with cause. They're just going back and forth. This is a delay tactic as they negotiate Shannon's exit. That's one aspect I wanted to cover. So now you have that explanation and understanding. Now I want to transition into the hypocrisy of Shannon Sharpe and try to educate you all on, like, you don't have to fall for the okie doke every time. You don't have to go, oh, well, this person is black and black Twitter loves him and black social media and the griot and the root, they write nice things about Shannon Sharpe. And he says that the white man is racist, so therefore I must support him. I was trying to tell y'all in real time, it's like, these guys that are running out, particularly these athletes, running out and pretending like they hate Donald Trump, never made sense to me. Never made sense to me. All of my, I want to be careful, I don't want to drag. My friends, though, I've tried to explain to them, like, you really got a problem with Donald Trump. My friends, those of us that spent a lot of years chasing tail, just keeping it real. Those of us, the private conversations we have, just the general, and I'm not saying it's all of my friends, but a lot of my friends, and all of my friends are heterosexual. You really got a problem with Donald Trump? Really? Does it make Donald Trump, the man that likes pretty women? We got a problem with Donald Trump. And so I would listen to Shannon Sharpe attack Donald Trump on air. And I'm like, what? You think Shannon Sharpe wouldn't be attracted to a 30-year-old version of Melania Trump? You think Shannon Sharpe has never said, I grab him by or whatever? The Shannon Sharpe that I knew with that sense of humor? But here's Shannon Sharpe, just a short clip of him, and this is what just irritated me, like fraudulent, attacking Donald Trump. And listen to how it sounds now. Play the clip.
Him on the Access Hollywood talking about grabbing hoo-ha. That did not shock the very conscience of 7 NFL owners, skipping light me a second to name those guys. One, Daniel Snyder, the guys on your monitor. Jerry Jones, Mr. Bob Kraft, McNair, Houston Texans, Woody Johnson, Shad Khan. They gave $1 million for the inauguration of President Trump. And now they seem to be shocked.
Shannon Sharpe. How does that sound? Can you not hear the fraudulence? And you should have been able to hear it back then. This is a former NFL player. This is that lives in the gym in his late 40s, early 50s, trying to sculpt his body. For what purpose? If to make himself attractive to Hollywood, whatever, the gay stylist? Maybe that's part of it. But I know for sure it's to make himself attractive to young women. That's his MO. And now he's got this big problem with Donald Trump. These people are fraudulent. They're on television lying for the check and the support they receive from Democrat operatives. And they're compromised. When someone is that fraudulent, it's like, oh, they got some dirt on you. And when I try to tell y'all, like, they only put people in those prominent positions that they have dirt on, because that dirt allows them to control that person. And I know Whitlock just hates Stephen A. Smith. No. I don't know if they got this kind of dirt on Stephen A. Smith, but they got dirt on Stephen A. Smith. His whole background is fraudulent. Oh, I got a basketball scholarship to Winston-Salem State. Well, they know this is a lie, and that's why they've empowered him. They know that if they hadn't installed him, he's not talented enough, he's not smart enough, he's not skilled enough, he's not qualified enough to sit at the top of the sports media food chain. They had to place him there. And they had to give him a fraudulent background and narrative in order to justify placing him there. And they can take it away anytime they want. And that's how they control Stephen A. Smith. This isn't hatred. This isn't jealousy. This is me trying to tell, don't fall for the okie doke. They're installed to promote an agenda. Stephen A. Smith hopping on TV, take the vaccine, and wagging a finger at black men and black people, take the vaccine. He's controlled. He's compromised. He's fraudulent. And that's why I keep telling you, look at all the people trying to help sell Stephen A. Smith. And they're not all left wing. They're all in on it. This is a game. And people get upset with me. And there are people that will be avoiding me now for telling you this truth. People that used to love to have me on their show won't have me on their show. They're going to avoid me for telling this truth. This is too real for them. They're all collecting a check. Their support is manufactured. They're installed to keep you blinded. And so they will avoid me. There go the bad guy. He's a sexist pig. He told women to fix him a sandwich. He believes in the patriarchy. He doesn't believe in feminism. Here's Shannon Sharpe. Do I have? No. I thought we had to. I'm wrong. We didn't pull the clip of Shannon Sharpe talking about Deshaun Watson, but we don't need it. We don't need it. Shannon Sharpe, in his lack of emotional control and the things that you all should have seen. When we saw Shannon Sharpe, and I think I may have discussed this yesterday, but I can't remember if it was on the Harmony Channel or on here. When we saw Shannon Sharpe at that Memphis Grizzlies game with the Lakers, let's play that in the background as I talk, against the Lakers, and he's losing his emotional control over some young basketball players. This man is 55 years old, trying to fight Dylan Brooks, I believe, in the Memphis Grizzlies. Steven Adams coming over there. I think he got into it with Ja Morant's dad or whatever. That's someone with no emotional control. And anybody with a brain should have seen, like, this dude's 55. He's a Hall of Fame football player. He's on the sidelines of a Lakers game wanting to fight the Memphis Grizzlies. That's an unstable person. And so all the rumors you may have heard about Shannon Sharpe and women, when you see that video, it's like, well, man, he'll snap like this with some dudes. It's not far-fetched to believe he'll snap like this with some women. And so remember when the O.J. Simpson thing happened, Brentwood and Nicole and I tend to believe O.J. was involved, but you can believe whatever you want. But then they went and told you about O.J.'s background, and it was like, how did we miss this? O.J. had let off all the signals that, he was capable of this and capable of being involved in something like this, even if he didn't actually do the entire killing or whatever. But there was, oh man, we ran through all the red flags. O.J. had let off signals that he was capable of this type of violent, emotional behavior. Shannon Sharpe, he showed you who he is. And look, I wish that he would come out of it, seek some real counseling, repent, and that will probably be part of his story when he's on the comeback trail and his handlers try to rehabilitate him. He'll talk about the counseling he went through and how, he'll give some false apologies, or maybe it'll be real, who knows? But I looked over last night, and he and Ocho Cinco did their draft show. And I was like, oh, there's still a lot of denial here. Because that draft show they did, anybody that watched it last night, it was embarrassing. Shannon's discomfort and the lack of thought they actually put into that draft show they did on Nightcap was like, oh yeah, he's off his square. Oh, he's rattled. It's clear the chemistry's gone. They're gonna have to do some real work to get Shannon back and to get the audience back on board with what we now know and see about Shannon Sharpe. The other aspect that I know that I played on the Harmony deal that I just wanted to introduce to this audience is there's this leaked audio that I think it was released about a month ago. Matt Barnes, the former NBA player, the co-host of All the Smoke, there's a leaked audio of him talking about beef between Shaquille O'Neal and Shannon Sharpe, and that perhaps the indication is, or the suspicion is, that Shaq is playing a role in the downfall of Shannon Sharpe, that Shaq has been looking for information, that there's beef between Shaq and Shannon Sharpe. And so I want to play this clip of Matt Barnes talking about Shaquille O'Neal and Shannon Sharpe. Let's play SOT number 12.
I don't know if you're on this kind of time, but I was in a group chat the other day, or actually just yesterday, and Shaq said he's paying top dollar for any information on old boy. So, again, I don't know if you're on that kind of time or not, but Shaq is known to throw large sums of money around, so just want to put that out there. I am quiet. Hey, he said, please, please, please keep it quiet. He said that Shannon did some shit back to him a while back, and he's been off him. So that's why he's doing this, but please, please, please keep his name quiet.
To that. Mm-hmm. Have you guys talked? We haven't. Shaq feels the way he feels, and he's perfectly fine to feel that way.
So Matt Barnes on this tape seems to be indicating that Shaquille O'Neal wants to bring down Shannon Sharpe. Matt Barnes seems to be telling people that, hey, if you got any inside information, Shaq's willing to pay for it if you have dirt on Shannon Sharpe. I bring this up for a couple of different reasons. One, I know a little bit about some of the old history as it relates to Shaq and Shannon Sharpe. But two, I just want you to understand how the game is being played, how the transfer of wealth, the millions upon millions of dollars, the athletic billionaires or near billionaires and how they're operating. And again, no different than the other non-athletic billionaires in terms of they'll put a bounty on someone, they'll look for dirt and information. It's like politics. And this is what they've turned sports into politics. And so they spend money looking for dirt on any and everyone so they can control them. It's a nation of blackmailed leadership, compromised leadership. And so when you hear me in this show talking about the need for men to live righteously so that they can't be compromised and blackmailed, this is what I'm talking about. There's a sacrifice that we as men have to make. And so when you understand or connect the dots on what I've been telling you about myself, like, hey man, I got to get out of LA, move someplace safe where I can live out my Christian values. I'm dealing with less temptation and all that. I needed to get someplace where I could be me and live more righteously, deal with less temptation. Because when you're someone like me that's like, no, I'm going to go out here and say what I really think, I'm going to tell the truth, and you make enemies, Matt Barnes, Stephen A. Smith's got a lot of money. Go down the whole list of people. Deion Sanders got a lot of money. Shannon Sharpe's got a lot of money. And they're willing to pay for dirt and information on me. And that's why I moved to Nashville, and that's why I've made all these efforts and been transparent. I'm removing the dirt. No, I've exposed my dirt. Because this is how they operate. This is how they control people. This is how they silence people. I'm trying, and this is why I'm trying to inspire you to make yourselves so that you can't be compromised, you can't be blackmailed, and that puts you in position to speak truth and to stand on your values. And most men don't want to live righteously. They want to be their own gods. They want to make the final decision on what's good and what's evil, what's sinful and what's not. We want to make the rules. And as long as we play by our rules, this world is going to continue to fall, and your children are going to continue to be vulnerable. And this culture is going to continue to fall deeper and deeper and deeper into nihilism. And so it won't matter whether you move out to Frisco, Texas, and think, oh, I'm in a safe place. Well, this poisonous, corrosive, cancerous culture that all of America is descending into, and all of this promotion of hip-hop culture, that's American culture, and platforming of all the gangster idiots that promote a prison mentality, it will touch you in your suburb. And the next thing you know, some black or white kid that has been programmed to think, oh, I've been disrespected, I get to kill you now. That nihilism will touch you. And so there are sacrifices we as men have to be willing to make if we actually want to produce a culture that's safe for young people and kids. It's, I don't know if I could make it any plainer than that. What's at stake and why we as men need to be responsible and make the necessary sacrifices to improve this culture and to make things safer for the young people. Can I make it any clearer than that? I do want you to go to fearlessrollcall.com, use the promo code 997, 50% off of all the tickets on there. Fearlessrollcall.com, promo code 997. I do want to make one other appeal to you before we go. The other thing you can do to support me, support The Blaze, support the kind of content you just received today, to support the kind of truth that will liberate this country, go to fearlessmission.com. Use the promo code Fearless. Become a subscriber to what we're doing here at Fearless, to what we're doing at Blaze TV. You can save $20 by using my promo code on a year-long subscription to Blaze TV. $20 discount, promo code FEARLESS. Go to fearlessmission.com. It's simple. Promo code FEARLESS. $20 off your subscription. Best thing you can do to support me, the Blaze, the kind of truth we're putting out. Do that. And I think that's all I have to say. In 10 minutes, I'll be on the Harmony channel. Let's throw that up there because I got more I want to say about Deion Sanders and just the father aspect. So go to youtube.com at Jason Whitlock Harmony. youtube.com at Jason Whitlock Harmony. I'll be live over there in 10 minutes unpacking some more thoughts about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. Join me over there. We'll play tomorrow, and we'll see you on this channel next week.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'll break my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.